O'Connell Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
That's right, Kevin O'Connell. Away we do go. The draft 1 week away. It's Purple Access. Judd and Chip, as always. Chip, let's start here. Let's start with, so it's never super informative. I'm not going to oversell it. But Kwesi did the annual week before the draft or so GM press conference. What were your takeaways trying to, I guess the best way to explain this is he talks, we try to read between the lines. What were your takeaways?
Yeah, I thought he mentioned impact a couple times in relation to impact versus need as he talked about just the framework of putting the team together. And I got the sense that because of the work that they did in off season or in free agency in, really addressing their major holes in the roster, that they are in a position where take the best player that's on your board right there versus, okay, got to have a corner, got to have a wide receiver, got to have a offensive guard, which I think we both probably agree that that's true because,
Yep.
When you do the moves that they made in free agency, I think that opened the door for them to be able to do that. Now, there's got to be a tiebreaker in terms of, you rank these guys, but there's probably not a whole lot of separation in that first round, or even second, subsequent rounds. So that I in that regard, I think you maybe prioritize positions.
Right. Do you have bins of BPAs as opposed to just, this is just the best player, but we're deep there? That's my question.
Because if they get to 24 and they stay there and the best player they have is a wide receiver, well, you're not going to take a wide receiver, I don't think, right?
Right.
So if all things are being equal, like with players, I still think I would focus. I go back and forth. I still think I'd focus on the trenches, whether it's defensive line, interior offensive line.
Yep.
Or cornerback. I think cornerback's just I sort of agree with Zim on that you can't have enough. And you need one more, that Zim used to always say. Mm-hmm. But just because they made additions to the interior offense line, interior defense line, I don't think that would preclude me from making, particularly defense line, because you're a little bit older there.
Yes.
If there's a defensive tackle there, I'm taking him.
Yeah, I agree.
Because they need to get younger. They need to have that second wave of young players coming. They can't keep doing the free agency route. So, but it was a lot of Kwesi talking about just the mechanics of putting a roster together when you do free agency draft and assigning value to, hey, you trade back and try to get more picks? I mean, it's an age-old discussion that we always have every year. Like, do you stay put? Do you try to get more picks? I still think there's a strong likelihood that they'll want to trade back to try to get at least one more, two more picks.
Sure. And you know what? We did a scoop session today with Doogie in which he said the sources that he has talked to say that trading back in the first round might not be as easy as we think, that there might not be, that teams might not want to trade up. Now, if one guy falls, that clearly can change that entire thing. But
I what the theory on that is that because there's not as many quarterbacks going, or what do you think?
I don't know. And look, someone's going to fall. Someone always falls, right?
Yeah.
And then the question becomes, if you're 24 and the Chiefs call and say, we want this guy, we'll make a trade, do you say, okay, that's cool? Or do you say, hell no, he fell and we're going to take him? I think where I fall is this. I don't think, first of all, and I'm guilty of this, but the more I think about it, okay? We have been talking so much because they have 4 picks, which is not a lot. We've been talking so much about trading back. I think that I've fallen into the thought process of, oh, they're going to trade back for sure. Because, if you stick and pick at 24, are we really going to complain if you get a player that you like? No. And you still have 3 picks then. And I'm not saying that you're going to get, if you do that, a day 2 pick again, but you can still trade back and get more picks. Like you have 3 picks. But on defensive tackle and offensive line, I've been trying to, go through. This team is built to win now, right? Like this team is built to win now. Now the quarterback can be a question mark, but everything else, this team is built to win. And what I've thought is, because realistically, if you take a guy at 24, it should not be a shock if that guy starts. I feel like we've grown shocked by it. Oh my God, this guy could start. But if you look around the league, starters are taken all the time in the first round, some of them late. And defensive tackle especially. And then guard, especially now because guards and tackles, like there's a lot more flexibility than back in our day. Like if you were a guard in our day, you basically played guard. Yeah. Been trying to think if this team had injuries, which by the way, they will. And like if Ryan Kelly at center gets hurt, no one can say, I'm shocked he got hurt. We didn't see this. The 2 defensive tackles, they're both coming off injuries. They're both old. So I'm with you. If you take a defensive tackle, and that guy might not start, or a defensive lineman, that guy might not start on day 1, but that guy could still be a crucial role in you winning now, because there's nothing about the construction of this roster for 2025 that says you just wait till 2026.
Yeah, well, you're right. Particularly defensive line, because your backup defensive lineman, how many snaps does he get in a game? The way they rotate these guys on packages.
Yeah, you get snaps.
Packages. It's
no
not
question.
like, Dallas Turner didn't start getting a lot of reps at the rush in, but by the end of the year, I don't know what he getting 15 a game, more. I don't know. So, offensive line is different. Obviously, you're not going to, because of continuity. But well, and the other thing is, one, they need to get younger everywhere.
Yes,
but
that was not the goal.
No,
at least in free agency this year. So you're right.
They need to get younger everywhere, and because I hate to say these free agency guys are just Band-Aids, because they probably still have a lot of good football, you'd hope, left in them. But
no, you're right.
But it comes fast, and so I've swung so much. We've always known the trenches are important, but just watching these teams, Judd, this year and last year, and just
I agree.
Philadelphia, Detroit, Kansas City defensive line. I just don't think you can have enough talent there, and I just think I would pour so much resources into that, those 2 areas, and then, I think corner, is it tough for a rookie corner to come in and play right away? I don't, in B-flow system. I don't know, but I think I would really zero in and put an emphasis on whether you trade back or stay in the trenches.
Yeah, I think at defensive tackle, or with the 2 guys that they signed for the defensive line, I think you have to be very, very prepared from day 1 for at least one to get hurt, because they're not young; they've been hurt. And
to that point, do you think they'll monitor their reps in terms of hey, let's get some depth so they're not playing so much? And
probably, but then that kicks into your point as well about, because and you can draft a defensive lineman who's not going to start and still get a ton of reps. And then on the offensive line, I'll say this: if you draft a guy that might be projecting as the Blake Brandel replacement at left guard, but can play tackle, you've got a right tackle in O'Neal, who's not a young man and has been hurt. Mm-hmm. And the other thing, too, is we're just going along merrily assuming that Darrisaw, who tore his knee up pretty significantly, is fine. And he's had now knee problems, concussion. So if the worst case is, okay, Darrisaw's out to start the season, or he gets concussed again, he's out for 3 weeks. I don't know. But if that's the worst case, and now you've got a guard that can swing and do it well to the tackle spot, and now Brando goes back in at guard. Like these are the things when you built this roster, which again is not a roster for the future. It's a roster for now. These have to be serious thoughts, because ain't no way that your opening day training camp depth chart is going to hold up for an entire season. Nobody thinks that.
And it never does. And you're right about, I think a lot of these offensive linemen coming out of college, and maybe it's because of the schemes they come into, but I think they understand there's a value in being able to play multiple positions, like
they're more athletic too.
More athletic.
They're just flat out more athletic.
Yeah. I mean, it's, the whole arc of sports development, science, all this stuff that we know. So I think there are opportunities to draft linemen that can play multiple positions and have the value there. So yeah, I mean, I think, when the season ended, I think we looked at this roster and said, man, there are some glaring holes.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll come out of the draft and your roster's never perfect or never set, but you don't feel that way now. Now it's just, can the rookie quarterback, where is he at, and can you have good health? I mean, it's
right.
Because I think they're they've addressed a lot of, like, before free agency, when they made a trade, we're like, they got to get a running back in the draft. Well, they don't have to do that now. Now that you made a trade,
right?
So you can, move on to other things. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think they'll be at 4 picks by the end of it, but I don't think they have to do the wheeling and dealing to try to get 8 picks and have try to do all these different things to try to accumulate picks. I mean, this might be the thing to really try to find the best players you can, without having to do the thing that we were so familiar with. Let's get a ton of picks and hope,
right, fill in positions because, oh my God,
percentages play out. Yeah,
they've learned their lesson, I hope.
Yeah.
And there are spots too where the depth of this draft helps. Yeah. Running back, prime one, right?
Yeah.
So, like, again, let's say you get into day 3 and trade back. And yes, you give up a pick, but you get 2 or 3 back, and now you're in the 5th round. Like, there should be enough running backs in this draft to get you a guy that can eventually compete. But Chip, what I think is so intriguing is, so 2024 until the Detroit game and then the playoff game, obviously, 14 wins, incredible year, right? And the day that season came to an end, you did say they have to improve up front, both sides. But you also said, okay, they're going to have a first year starting quarterback. This team looks like the future is bright. But I feel like even at that point, we were talking more about, okay, 2026, the window, right?
Yeah.
Oh, they have constructed this, and I give them credit, I guess, but they've constructed this now where I think it's fair to say when training camp starts, there's going to be pressure to win now, which I'm not saying it wouldn't have existed, but when you look at what they've done, they have given themselves a roster where if they make the conference championship game for the 2025 season, you'll be happy about it, but I don't think you'll be shocked.
Yeah. Do you think, how much do you think that was influenced by obviously the age and salary and all that of your players, but how much do you think that was winning 14 games with Sam Darnold?
I think, yeah. Well, and you saw your flaws.
Yeah.
Like the lines, when push came to shove, you also, like, your flaws were put on national display. Yeah. And meanwhile, the teams that won were good where you were flawed.
Where you were not good. Yeah, but I think, and I applaud and appreciate the sentiment that's like, okay, you're transitioning to I keep calling him rookie quarterback, first year starter.
Yeah, first year starter.
The head coach has got to long-term deal. So there's some runway here. And it's like, don't fall into that. It's like, no, wait a second. You look at the roster, like this was not just a outlier flash in the pan. This is a roster that's built to, win right now. So I appreciate that they have that mindset, and I think they've found. It's interesting, Judd, because first year that was smoke and mirrors because you can't be a legitimate playoff team. You can win a lot of games in the NFL because everything's close, and if you can win the close games, the one-score games, you can have a good record.
Yep.
Doesn't mean you're built to really be a serious contender. You can't have the worst defense or a bad defense and be
correct
taken seriously, right?
Correct.
Last year they won a lot of games. I think they were a really good team, but as we saw, you cannot be a legitimate contender with deficient line play. And it wasn't, disaster, but it just is not elite.
It was against the Rams.
It was disaster.
The offensive line
situations.
became
It in the regular season, I don't think we
Yeah.
called it a disaster.
No.
But when you're facing the best teams, you can't win if you're deficient in those two areas.
Yep.
Offense, and so they've learned from 2 seasons where they won a lot of games about O'Connell made a coaching change, defense coordinator after that first one. Okay, that's great. Regular season was fun, won a lot of games. That style of defense not going to work. Last year won a lot of games. That season was fun, but you're not going to do anything if you don't really beef up and address your offensive defense lines. So even they didn't get sucked into like, okay, hey, this is great. It's like, no, there's fundamental problems even in seasons where you win a lot of games, and they've addressed them. So I think they have a pretty good sense about like self-awareness, like who they are, right, in those situations. And so, yeah, I mean, it's, let's see what I'm curious to see how they approach this, the draft, because I think it'll kind of tell us, it'll give us some more insight into what they think about themselves.
Yes.
Don't you agree?
I agree. Yes. And look, it will. I think the question is going to become this: do you want to get more picks because that's what you feel you should do, or do you want to fill some holes? And that doesn't mean you can't get more picks, but like if they don't like and don't receive enough offers for 24 and they pick and stick, again, I'm not going to complain, and I think that's going to tell us a lot. Because remember, in the 2022 problem started when Kwesi traded down.
Yeah.
Kyle Hamilton was there, and you could have taken him. He had fallen. He's a phenomenal player, and you're like, we got to trade down, and then we're going to take a safety. So the one thing I think is interesting about this regime, Kwesi O'Connell, is this. And it's how much do you learn, right? And I'm going to give you one where I think O'Connell learns. Like, he's a coach, he's stubborn, I get all that. But there's the difference between being stubborn and just being so stubborn that you won't move off a point, right? And I think what O'Connell learned in 2024 was this, because he knew and he is sensitive to the fact that his team was seen as soft. Like, they were seen as soft. And I think what he learned was this: he went to training camp and said, we're going to be tougher. And he, for this day and age, had a tougher camp. I know compared to the old school, it was nothing. Yeah. It was a cakewalk, but he had a tougher camp, and I think it worked for a while. Yeah. But then you got to the Detroit game at the end and the Rams game, and you got your ass kicked. And it wasn't because you didn't want to be tough; it's because you just weren't tough enough.
You weren't built that way,
right? So now you don't. But I felt like he went into last training camp saying, we're going to work harder and be tougher. And that's great. It's a philosophy. Yeah. But then what I think happened was they got to crunch time, which is the playoffs. Yeah. And they weren't built that way. And so now they're like, screw it. Let's just go get the guys who are going to have a snarl and we don't have to talk to, which to me was an incredibly important lesson. Because now, I mean, Chipper, if they take a guy that could potentially play left guard with pick 24 or high.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to go from being a a line that interior wise got pushed around to probably, just guessing here, a top 5 line potentially in the entire league.
On paper, with these guys, I mean, you look
Right.
at their additions. That Seifert brought this one up. The Walter Rouse, the guy they took last year. He's mentioned him as a possible guy to throw in. He's just guessing if you're talking about just not having to start a rookie, or if Randall's not the guy. If how can you get better internally? You kind of piqued my curiosity when you talk about the O'Connell message, and I'm curious to because we heard a lot last year that we said that training camp was tougher, but a lot of almost like defiance from him last year that no one's talking about this team, no one really believes in this team. We only I think we have enough here, even when everybody on the outside was saying no. You felt like that defiance, like, hey, this team's a lot better than people think it is, and that's fine. No one's talking about us and all that. What do you think will be his kind of tone or message with this group, with McCarthy as the quarterback?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think he really likes feeling like he or his team are being disrespected. Don't you?
I think he thrives in that.
Exactly. Because it's
messaging. And maybe he'll use the fact that they have a new quarterback and. But this is a team that won, 14
There's no excuses. I don't think we get any. I don't think J.J. McCarthy publicly gets any. Like, they'll talk about his, development, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think we get we've got a first-year QB. I think we get a 100%. We are going to hit the ground running, and if we don't, there's trouble.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any lowering of the bar
no.
in messaging.
Nor should there be, right?
No. But I think... It's a weird thing, because even though you have an unproven quarterback that has to show that he can play in the league, I think enough people have looked at what they've done to their roster and said, this team got better. And take the quarterback situation out of it, and that's obviously the most important thing, but all around him, they made themselves better off a team that was pretty darn good. So I'm curious what outside observers, outside of the state, league observers, what they'll say about the Vikings.
I feel like the national press, because of McCarthy, is downplaying the expectations. But I feel like if you examine the roster and their moves, that you nailed it. They are leaving no margin for, 2025 was good, but 2026, they are... Because I do think the internal expectation is McCarthy's going to be very good. Yeah. I feel like they are throwing a window that I didn't expect to go wide open until 2026, open in 2025. But I mean, when you do look at the projections of wins, the McCarthy factor is huge, because that's why I think the Packers, I believe they're at 8.5, which the Bears are around the same. So do I. Packers,
I think 10.
9.5. The Lions are around 10.
Yeah, I mean, projections, I guess, if you're talking about betting. But if you ask me right now, it's like, I know they have to set the lines. I mean, they're smarter in that stuff than me. But if you said this team's going to win 10 games, I'd be like, it makes sense,
I think it's realistic to just forget the gambling part. I think 11 or 12. Probably not 14 again. 14's very high.
12
I think 11
might be high, but you could see it. I mean, if McCarthy's
right,
like, I would be, we never can predict injuries, but we always, when you make predictions, you don't predict injuries, but
right.
I just don't see a bottom out type,
no
team struggling to get the, I just don't see that. I think there's too much talent surrounding McCarthy for this to be, like a just kind of average team. I just, maybe I'm wrong, but I think there's enough evidence of the coaching and of the talent they have on this roster. So it would be interesting to see and hear from Flores, because I'm sure he has a major input in this draft process too. Like,
Yes.
what would he prioritize, line or secondary? If he had B-Flow, you get the 24th
I
pick.
think
What are you
line.
doing?
I think line. I
Yeah.
think because if they can get pressure from Grenard, Van Ginkel, Turner, and the interior, you ain't gonna have a lot of time to throw a football.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't. I think you're probably right. I'm thinking through their secondary. I mean, they're good at safety now with Harrison coming back
And I like Jackson too.
and Jackson.
Metellus Jackson, yeah.
You got Murphy, corner. Maybe he might say, "Get me a corner, Judd."
He might, but I don't know. Boy, yeah, I don't know that they're going to take a corner as high as the national perception is.
Yeah. Are a lot of the mock drafts have him with a corner?
I think the FanDuel odds put them atop the cornerback list.
Yeah.
But and I get that from an outside perspective, but Blackman's back. He tore his knee up, but an ACL is like Tommy John. You come back from it now. Like it's not like the old days, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You paid Murphy huge, which is fine.
Yeah.
They evidently so I guess the Flores' wish list started in free agency with this Isaiah Rodgers kid from Philadelphia, and I guess he loves him.
Okay. Well,
So,
trust his
I think he'll
instincts
start
and
him.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing is his defense now is largely built by him, right?
Yeah, because this is 2 cycles of him saying, kind of the type of player or the exact player that he wants,
Right.
So that's interesting that Rodgers, he had his
Guess he loves him.
so yeah, so if there's 3, if there if Blackman is back and
Right.
and there's no reason to think he shouldn't be.
Yeah. And don't forget our tip line. Asante Samuel
yeah.
Jr. dancing at nightclubs in Florida with a Vikings hat on,
Vikings hat.
per a daughter of a listener. And now we've got all this Asante. Yeah, look, it does make some sense.
Yeah, I know. It's like
It does make some sense.
I'm wearing a Vikings hat out.
You don't know where tips come from now, man. You don't know. They come from everywhere, Chipper. It's like the old days with the Favre tips.
Hey, if it sounds good, run. Yeah, like the Favre tip we got.
He's in Mankato.
Driving a Camaro.
Camaro Rockford. Driving a Jim Rockford car, my man.
They saw him at Target or something in a Camaro.
No, Shields.
Shields, that was it. Yeah.
They saw him at Shields. And I guess he went to Boomtown and said, "Yeah, I'm Brett Favre." And it was like, "Oh my God, Favre's done." It's like, what
Favre's
are you
here.
Are you
Samuel
idiots?
Favre's
That man
here.
never set foot in Mankato on purpose.
He was at the Shields in a Camaro. I love
Yeah,
it.
he was at the Shields, and at least one of the Mankato news stations did a segment. It's like Brett Favre might have been
God.
spotted in town. It's like he's not in Mankato. That's the whole point of this thing, not to be in Mankato.
Oh gosh, that was
That was
good.
great. Excuse me. So I start to laugh and then I swallow something wrong. Okay, so I do want to get to something Seifert tweeted out that Kwesi said about the QB spot. 'Cause
Yeah,
I found
yeah.
it intriguing. But before we get to that, don't forget it's the Purple Daily Draft Party. Just days away, Thursday, April 24th. In other words, 1 week from today. VIP doors at 5 p.m. General admission doors at 5:30. The show begins at 7. GA tickets are still available, only $10. VIP tickets, which include a meet and greet, premium balcony seating, 2 drink vouchers, a food voucher, and a Purple Daily snapback hat, are only $125. All in attendance also, and this is the best part, are going to get a Purple Daily handheld flag so you can wave that flag just like your sports dad does, because I'm in great shape right now, prepared to wave that flag. More information and tickets at scorenorth.com/draft, scorenorth.com/draft. All right, so let's wrap things up here with, I would guess that this was the one interesting comment that Kwesi had per the personnel, where he said that the delay in adding quarterback depth. So they've got a starter, they've got a third guy, they do not have a second guy. That delay, quote, hasn't only been about the comp pick situation / formula. Now, when we thought that they were going to sign Flacco, which he's now signed with Cleveland, We thought they're going to wait till 3 days after the draft when 2026 pick compensation is not attached to a player that signs with a team from a team in which he left as a free agent. What did you make of this comment? Because I will say this is still, to me at least, very intriguing.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if he was just saying that as a smokescreen.
Yep.
My gut tells me it's still all about comp pick, right?
That's a huge part of it. But I'm saying if there's more to it, like it is interesting. It's because Tannehill didn't play last year.
Yeah.
So if you were going to sign him, you could have signed him a month ago.
Yeah. Which could he be like the plan B to whatever they're.
I'm leaning more towards a trade right now.
Okay.
I wonder if it's a trade. There has to be a list of quarterbacks. It's probably pretty small that are backups that O'Connell likes. Because nothing that happens happens with that position and O'Connell is by accident.
No.
Totally intentional, as they say.
Yeah, and Kwesi does go out of his way to say there's 3 ways to improve your roster: trade, free agency, and draft. Right. So maybe that's it. Maybe they're have been working behind the scenes about, hey, what's it going to take to pull off a trade to get a quarterback? Could be because the options have kind of dried up at this point.
Well, that's the thing is, but they've allowed them to, and again, I don't think that they're screwing up.
No.
It's weird, but I just feel like there's
it's how seductive or necessary are the comp picks, like to your overall
very
plan.
seductive to those guys.
Well,
very seductive.
Then maybe you're willing to wait to protect those and deal with there's got to be a couple scenarios where they said, okay, if we wait but we get burned because Joe Flacco signed somewhere else,
right?
Then we got to pivot to this. So
right.
So because I gotta imagine there's gonna be resolution next week though, right? Or when's the date? To 20? What is that date again? Is it?
Oh, it's 3 days after, I think. So it's
3 days. Yeah.
3 days, I believe, after the draft ends.
At 3 p.m. Yeah. So,
but I mean, it's like Carson Wentz now. I don't know. I feel like there's something they're doing on purpose here, and I do. So the 2 names, and who knows here, okay? But the 2 names that have come up as trade potentials that I think are at least can be talked about. Aiden O'Connell.
Mm-hmm.
Gino's going to start there, and I have no idea if Pete Carroll has the time of day for O'Connell, who started quite a bit, for the Raiders. He's certainly not a disaster. He is a backup. And the second name that came up because his spot on the roster is basically he's been pushed out, Sam Howell in Seattle. But he had 21 picks 2 years ago. Yeah. And that to me might be a bridge too far for O'Connell. Because he lived the quarterback YOLO lifestyle with Mullins there. And I think he learned his lesson. Like he couldn't control him. Like he's like, don't do that. And I'll never forget. Mullins drops back to pass in Cincinnati. He's being sacked. It's like, okay, eat the ball. And he literally just laughs it up. And I think O'Connell's like, I'm done with this.
I know. Well, O'Connell was, took a lot of, I think, enjoyment of studying all the quarterbacks in the draft, like extensively for going back years. So
yes,
I think he has a pretty good notebook on a lot of guys that have come into the league in X number of years, going back to when he was with McVay. I think he was in charge of studying all the quarterbacks and doing all that. So I think he has a pretty good sense of who's out there, kind of where they're at and what they're good at. So it wouldn't surprise me. We keep, we've everybody focuses on the free agent guys and who's there available when the net's probably wider in his mind.
Yes.
In terms of trade and possibilities. So
yes,
just would teams be willing to come off their backup, if they have a different option? So
that's what I'm saying. O'Connell makes some sense because Pete Carroll is new there. And Howell makes sense because Seattle got Drew Lock, but I don't know 21 picks to me screams O'Connell wouldn't touch him unless he thinks he can fix him, but that's a lot to fix.
Yeah. I mean,
because they've got to be prepared.
He's a quarterback whisperer.
Right, but if McCarthy, but that's another thing is if McCarthy, tweaks the knee or struggles, I don't expect he'll struggle badly, but if he tweaks the knee, you've got to be prepared. And I would be shocked if we saw a 2016 Sean Hill's your backup and he's 40 years old. I don't think that's where my guess is Flacco scared him off.
Yeah, and that's where and that's where it goes back to what we talked about for the first half of this conversation. It's like if something happened to McCarthy, you can't punt on the season.
Correct. Well, the Wilfs wouldn't allow it.
Yeah, I mean you're too much invested in this roster to win right now. So
correct.
I think you have to find someone that you're like, you know what? If you can do it, like this guy's a fringe starter. Like not, either has
right.
But it's not just the mentor, the
right. Well, because they don't need this is the thing I think that gets lost in conversations about this team now. They don't need mentors per se. They've got O'Connell, McNown. They've got mentors. So I think what they want is what O'Connell wants, and I think what they learned after Kirk got hurt in 2023. I think what O'Connell wants is the backup doesn't have to be great, but he has to be completely on the same page of executing the exact game plan. Like Mullins didn't do that. Nick could come in like he did, 2 or 3 times last season, and he could complete a pass or 2 or 3. It's when he was getting the start, and now we're on snap 10, and the ball is flying by an ear hole and into a safety's hands. So I think what O'Connell, and also the Dobbs start, if you go back to that start, when Dobbs got in against the Falcons in game 1, that was his best game because he didn't know a thing, and O'Connell's literally like, here's what you're going to do.
Walked him through it. Yeah.
And then when Dobbs got emboldened, O'Connell, I think, got sort of pissed because he's like, don't do your own thing, do my thing. So I think what he wants is, sort of a guy that can be programmed as opposed to, I got a good arm, going to cut her loose. He does not want that.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure there's, multiple, options that they're looking at. And so, it'll be interesting, kind of fascinating to see where they land at. And Monday, right? Monday's first day of off-season work.
We supposedly, I don't have a time yet, have access to the head coach. I'm hearing rumblings. The quarterback might talk. There's rumblings. Whoa. My ears to the ground. That McCarthy might be talking on Monday, which will be the first time he's talked to the local press since last fall.
Yeah.
Didn't he do something with you guys?
There had to be an update somewhere.
I think he provided one after the first surgery, like in September. I think he talked. Okay. I think that's last. Now he's done a ton of national stuff since then. Yeah, but I don't think
we saw him. Like I talked to him for a story I did on.
Yeah, I heard you violated. That's what I heard.
We didn't talk about his recovery.
You went right through PR, and you're like, "Hey, JJ, Scoggins here. I'm a big deal in this town, sir." You went full Sid.
I broke protocol. Hey, listen.
Yeah, listen. Talk to me. Don't talk to anyone else.
Let me get you for a minute.
Feeling good? All right. Anyway, all right. And then, of course, next week is the draft. I'll probably check with you on like a Friday show. I don't think we should do it on Thursday because the shelf life would be so short. So let's probably aim for Friday.
Yeah, let's do Friday.
Talk about the first round. Chip, as always, great stuff. Purple Access is the show. We'll see you next week.
See ya.